Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Dark Matter Season 3, Episode 10, Built Not Born. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Dark Matter, so I have to start with a spoiler warning for Dark Matter up to Season 3, Episode 10. If you haven't seen up to this point, you may not want to watch this video. Otherwise, some things may be spoiled for you. So I haven't, like I said, I cover Dark Matter like every 3 episodes. I didn't cover the last 2 episodes. And I have to say, like episode 8, Hot Chocolate, was probably, I did much prefer that episode to this one, to be honest, and the other one as well. Like, I thought that was a great, I think I probably should have reviewed that episode instead, because that was sort of a great sort of mind-bending episode. Really suspense, maybe one of the most suspenseful episodes that the show has ever done, where, you know, Rio's taking over the ship by using this guy who's in control of the android and totally taking her over, and then seeing like Five help her like banish this guy into like this limbo land. It was so dark, it was just so awesome. It was such a great episode, and I love how they have the titles from like sort of irrelevant moments, like where hot chocolate was the key word that got the android to reassert herself, because she has this thing about hot chocolate. So really loved that episode, and the next episode after that was Isn't That a Paradox, which I'm iffy about. I just looked up on IMDb, and apparently it's currently the highest rated episode. I don't agree with that. I don't think it was a bad episode, but I don't know. I just think it just seemed like every other sort of like going back in time to the present. Like if a show is set in the future, like Star Trek or whatever, let's go back to present times. It just seemed like that cliche Star Trek 4 kind of thing that we've seen a dozen times before. It was interesting seeing like the Dark Matter characters in that particular setting, but it just felt used. And of course that storyline with the little kid who was like, oh, they're, he's spying on them. There's something wrong with them. That's such a cliche. That is such a fake storyline. I've seen billions of times before. There's nothing realistic about it. To me, that brought the entire episode down. But, I mean, there were moments of levity, and then I like the fact they got the blink drive or whatever. So I didn't hate it, but to me, it was just kind of an average episode. So now let me get to Episode 10, Built Not Born, which is mainly what I'm here to talk about. And I got mixed feelings about this episode too, because I did like sort of delving deeper into the android and her, and really she should have a name, because these other androids have names. They mentioned they called her something in this episode. I can't remember what it was, but that was, I don't know. She's still referred to as android. I thought it was very weird for Victor to be saying android, but calling her android when he's an android, but whatever. Anyway, I did think this was really intense episode. I liked that the android sort of relationship with the crew was tested, where she was asking them for a favor. Hey, I got these friends, they need my help. And so the crew was pretty much all on board to help her. They were willing to go on this adventure, risk their lives, whatever, because they think that the android has earned it, and that she is a good, productive member of the crew, and they have feelings for her. They think that they're willing to help her out. Whereas 3 was the only one who was kind of iffy about it. He's like, yeah, I'm all good with Android, but her friends, like, they're just Android. Who gives a crap about them? And I love the juxtaposition with his sort of his girlfriend, who's kind of like, I don't know, you couldn't say she's an artificial intelligence, because it's her actual self, but she's being kept alive by artificial means, like she's in an artificial environment. So she kind of took his sort of android hating a bit personally. So that was interesting. Sarah, that's her name. So that part of it I did find interesting, and I also found there was like a hint of mystery throughout this episode of what you feel like there was more to it than what meets the eye. I wasn't the biggest fan of this revelation of the creator being like this being Zoe Palmer, basically the same actress who plays the android, looking exactly like her, and it's a human version, and that the android was simply built. I don't know. This is just an overall pet peeve I have with shows in general. Especially when they've been going for several seasons, and then all of a sudden they like twist the backstories to say, actually, this person was really something else all along. Like, I don't like that in general. Like, I was just reading about this in Star Trek Voyager, where Harry Kim, at one point, they were going to reveal he was an alien the whole entire time, and some people actually thought that was a good idea, saying, "Oh, that's something they should have done." No, it's not. It's a bad idea. It's always bad. Like in Deep Space Nine, when in the 5th season they revealed that Dr. Bashir was really genetically enhanced. I mean, that was dumb because it's totally inconsistent. I mean, they have little in-story excuses to say, "Oh, he was just pretending" or whatever, which, you know, on the surface level they add up, but really it's just all too obvious. They hadn't thought of that before, and it throws me out of the world because it's inconvenient writing. And I would say it's the same thing here. Like, if their excuses explain everything away on the surface level. You could say, "Oh, well, Android didn't know this, they got their memories wiped," and all this stuff actually just wasn't mentioned before because they tried to tie it in to the, what was it called, Rook or whatever, who created 2, and try to make it all make sense. But it's very, very, very obvious that the writers didn't think of this until now. And it's very obvious that they didn't, from the conception of the show, weren't like, "Oh, this is the backstory. Android was created by this human, and she was tied into 2, and they used to have a relationship." Even in season 2, it's obvious they weren't thinking this. And it's obvious that this was just made up to, you know, artificially create some backstory for the characters to make them more tied together, more interesting. And I just, in general, I do not like it when TV shows do this, and it just felt very contrived. I'm not on board with it. I thought it was a bit silly, and especially that they were in a relationship together. I don't know. Also, another thing that bothered me about this episode was it was so obvious that Victor was hiding something. I mean, when he told his story of events, that about what happened to the dead body they found, it was beyond obvious he was lying. And then when they revealed that at the end, and then they took Sarah. Okay, this is something that really, really, really bothered me, is that when at the end, when like the GA came and was attacking, and what's her face, whoever, the android, real human person, whatever they said her name was, she said that, "Oh, we can't disconnect Sarah. We have to take her with us, or else we might lose her." And so at this point, I was expecting 3 to be like, "Well, I'm coming with you." So I was very pissed off. I thought this felt inconsistent with his character, especially they showed him earlier that he was deeply in love with her. He doesn't want to let her go, so why would he simply just let these strangers take her away? I mean, obviously she said, "Well, we had to take her with us, otherwise she might die," so that part makes sense. What doesn't make sense is why he didn't simply go with her. I mean, I know there's going to be people saying, "Oh, but he has this connection to the Raza crew, he's not just going to leave them." I disagree. I strongly, strongly disagree. I mean, he could always go back to the Raza once he gets Sarah. It's not like it would have to be a permanent leave. It would be like, "I'm going with you guys just to make sure Sarah's okay, and once we're okay, then we'll go back to the Raza." That's what I expected, but it was obvious to me the reason he didn't plot. It was so contrived, and in my opinion, that that he would simply just let these strangers take her. And then the big reveal that, "Oh, we're actually evil," or whatever. They have this evil plan, and they're going to make Sarah go on the evil plan, and she's going to become evil. I'm just guessing. Maybe she won't be evil, but they have ulterior motives, I'll put it that way. And it was beyond obvious that throughout the entire episode that Victor had ulterior motives, and that there was a hidden agenda, and that they were evil or whatever. And I am very very much against this whole thing. Because when we met Victor in previous episodes, he's actually good. He was a cool guy. Liked him. He didn't have this ulterior motive, or and the fact it's obviously they're just trying to create more tension, have other storylines going that creates sort of tension throughout the series, and I don't think they need it. I think they should just focus on the main storyline about the war. It seems like that's getting pushed to the side a lot this season. And so yeah, I actually had a lot of issues with this episode. And up until, like I talked about episode 8, Hot Chocolate, up until that episode, I actually thought this season was going really well. It was one of my, I thought it was being one of the better seasons because we got a lot of great episodes up to that point. There were, I had some issues with having Six leave and those other two characters just come in for 2 episodes, whatever. But for the most part, I think every episode was being pretty strong, pretty hard out. But with these past 2 episodes, it's kind of dipping in quality, I gotta be honest, for me, especially this last one. It doesn't make me all that excited to see what the show's gonna do, especially with the storyline, because they definitely have to follow up with this storyline, and it just seems a bit contrived and cheesy to me, I'm sorry to say. So my rating for Built Not Born out of 10 is gonna have to be a 5 average. I didn't totally hate this episode. There were interesting parts of it. The characters were, interactions we got. It was cool seeing 5 on the ship, talking to that other android and being very no, we like the android. And as I said, it was good seeing the android sort of going through her own personal journey and discovering her place in life, how she was upset when she learned that she was just a android version of this human, and we know there's something more special. All that was good, but there was too many contrived plot points in this episode. This just bothered me, just annoyed me. But not a horrible episode, so I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Cool. So that's it for my review of Built Not Born. I will be back for the season finale in a couple of weeks, so be sure to check back here for that. Also check out my channel for many more reviews on other shows like Game of Thrones, Star Trek, and more, so be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.